All right, folks, thanks for tuning in. Good news, I have a chalkboard at home. Bad news, it's pretty tiny. So I'm gonna do my best to teach you guys what's going on with the rest of our genetics unit, since we didn't get to finish that in school. So I thought that, I know you can't get enough of me, so I thought I'd give you a little mini lesson from home. I'll be doing a couple short videos showing you the rest of our DNA genetics unit, and then we'll go into our evolution unit. So today's lesson is on the DNA in the environment and how DNA can be affected by multiple different things, and that it can change either by mutation or by some of the things that are present in the environment, like sunlight or even nutrition. So the first thing that we're going to talk about actually is a reminder that DNA found in all of our cells except red blood cells. Remember that DNA is found in every single cell, and it's the same exact DNA, right? So the DNA that's found inside brain cells, muscle cells, liver cells is all exactly the same. But remember that if you're a brain cells are only reading the chapter in the big book of DNA just on how to be a brain cell. It's only producing the proteins meant for the brain cell. Even though it has access to the information in chapter 4 on muscle cells, it's only using the DNA and the information about brain cells for itself, okay? So that's very important because DNA codes for proteins. We know this, we already talked about DNA coding for mRNA, which codes for amino acids, and then you put a bunch of amino acids together, and the sequence that they make determines the shape of that protein, whatever it is, okay? So if you have the DNA that codes for proteins for a specific type of cell, that DNA will make those specific proteins, okay? So how do mutations affect DNA? So normally we know DNA, right, codes for mRNA, which codes for a protein, like this Pac-Man protein over here, that breaks apart some food thing, right? But if there's a mutation from the sun or maybe smoking or something like that, it changes the codes in the DNA. That code in the DNA is going to change the shape of the protein, whatever it is, and then it can't do its job, right? And so now you can't digest that protein, or you can't build something up, right? Proteins can do all sorts of things. So mutations, right, can change the shape of your DNA, or change the structure of DNA, which changes the shape of the protein, which affects its function, right? Shape equals function. So if the DNA is messed up, the protein's messed up. So what are the causes of mutations? So multiple different things. Sometimes DNA is just copied incorrectly, right? Sometimes our proteins will catch it, sometimes they won't, and so that change in code could have a huge effect or no effect. But most of the time, mutations are bad news, right? They're affecting a well-organized book, right, of information. And that'd be like you going in and changing a letter in the book and just hoping for the best. It might not have any effect, but it might mess up the sentence, which messes up the meaning of the entire book. That's a little dramatic, but. So sometimes they're random. Sometimes they're caused by these things called mutagens. So for example, the most common one that you're used to is hearing about UV radiation, right? Going out laying and getting a tan, staying out there too long, right, can cause skin cancer. It messes with the DNA, which messes with the protein, potentially messing up your DNA's ability to copy mitosis, right, and then leading to cancer. You also have radioactive elements that are around. We typically don't need to worry about this so much, but there are actually some radioactive materials found inside cigarettes and other tobacco-related products that can mess with the sequence. So smoking can mess up the process of mitosis, right, which leads to cells dividing uncontrollably, which is cancer. So now that we know how mutations are caused, how does that affect your own body and your kids? So mutations can be passed to offspring, right? Not just humans, but any offspring from any organism. But if the mutation occurs within your lifetime just randomly, like so say for example, that was a random mutation or caused by the sun or smoking, like lung cancer, something like that, those mutations are not going to be passed on to your kids because they did not occur inside your sperm or egg cells, okay? However, if you carried around some plutonium in your pocket, right, and that caused a mutation inside your sperm cell or potentially egg cell, and those ones were to get fertilized, then yes, a mutation can be passed on to your offspring, but it needs to be from sperm and egg, okay? It needs to already either be in the genetic code or it needs to be acquired inside the sperm or egg before they're passed on, okay? Okay, so finally we end with, so for how the DNA is infected by the environment is it can affect your genes. Even though your genes are a set code, they can be turned on or off by certain things in the environment, okay? So first one is hormones. So we know hormones can affect your body and your growth rate and all that sort of stuff. And again, that's controlled by your DNA, but hormones are kind of like the light switch that turns the certain genes on or off to grow at certain points, to create proteins that you didn't have, that weren't being produced before, right? So hormones within the body, right, are being affected. So that's not really the outer environment, but that's the internal environment of the body being affected by hormones within it. Number two is nutrition. So there's this famous study done between two twins. One, they were identical twins, right? So same exact genes. They were developing inside the womb, and one of them was just not getting enough nutrition for whatever reason. Their placenta wasn't fully developed, and the height difference between the twins after they were fully grown was like by 1.5 feet. So the environment, right, even though it was inside the mother's womb, stunted the growth of the twins. Even though they had the exact same DNA, their height was then ended up being different, which is kind of crazy. Number three, temperature. So temperature can affect certain genes being turned on or off. Think about winter coats and spring coats of different mammals, right? So think about deer, even some dogs, right? Get a winter coat versus their spring coat or summer coat, right? So that is temperature changing the genes, turning them on or off, okay? And then similar to pH, or similar to temperature as pH, if the pH gets too low or too high, you could just destroy the DNA. That's one way that we can consume DNA, is the pH in our stomach will actually destroy some of the DNA, break it up into smaller pieces. Okay, but the pH of your blood or inside your body could turn certain genes on or off as a protective measure. So that's DNA in the environment. Those are the 6 things we really need to know about that. Our next video will be on how we can edit genes using the technology that we have access to. And one of those things we already talked about, which was gel electrophoresis, where we can cut DNA and then it runs through the gel, right? But we're going to talk about a few more of those. Okay, thanks. See you next time.